And if you don't feel comfortable sharing anything, that I'm going to have recorded, just go ahead and ask me questions in the chat. You can ask it directly to me if you feel like you just want to ask it directly to me. And when I answer the questions at the end, I won't mention who asked what. So let's get into it. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate you being here. I started with that Bob Marley song, Don't Worry About a Thing, because every little thing's going to be all right. And sometimes in parenting, it kind of feels like it's not going to be okay, right? we get trapped in that feeling of terror sometimes, and I feel like it's so confusing, specifically behaviors that we have lots of questions about, but what I hope this presentation does for you is show you that you're not alone. These behaviors typically, or always, are very common and developmental, and really the way we respond is what we need to shift a little sometimes. So let's get into it. And ooh, I forgot to share my screen. Can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's see. So oopsie. Sorry. Here we are. And give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen okay. Ready? You see it okay? Yay! Okay, well, welcome everybody. And today we're going to be talking about understanding your child's behavior and how you respond in a way that can promote learning. So just before I start, again, if you are just joining us and you have some questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. You can ask the question to everyone, or you can ask it just to me, and I will answer it at the end of the discussion. So if you want to jot down some questions on a separate piece of paper, go ahead and I'll answer everything at the end. Or just type it in the chat. It's probably easier. To start with, I just want you all to know that I am not a psychologist. I am not a behaviorist, but I have been working with young children for 20 years. I have 3 boys of my own, and I've been to a ton of parenting workshops and parenting talks. And one thing I've walked away with that has been really clear is that 1, every child is completely different. 2, there are so many philosophies out there. And 3, the beauty of it is that you get to take what works for your child and you get to leave what doesn't. So walking away from this talk today, I hope you can better understand child development and how your child's brain is developing, and also find tools that will help you get to know your individual child and what they're going to need. So with that said, let's get started. I love this quote by Lisa Smith. She's a peaceful parenting coach, and she says, "Don't get furious, get curious." And that's kind of the theme of today's talk, is that often we get so confused and overwhelmed with our own emotions about children's behaviors that we forget that, they're trying to communicate something and they just aren't ready or don't have the skills, right? So with that said, I love this little graphic. You're going to see a lot of these graphics that I took from Dr. Daniel Siegel, and particularly one of his books that's called The Yes Brain. And I love this graphic because it says, ask 3 questions. So you see a daddy and he's working with his daughter, and it says, I wonder why she's having a hard time right now. What can I do? What do I want to teach her, and how can I do it best? So I love this. Don't get furious, get curious. Of course, the first time I read this, I was like, okay, Lisa Smith, yeah, right. It's easier said than done, right? Let's see. There we go. So I want to talk about the brain. And again, you're going to hear me mention Dr. Daniel Siegel over and over in this talk. I love the way he uses 3 parts of the brain to explain a lot of the behavior you're going to see in your child. I've got a little image there of the Yes Brain book that I was talking about. And one thing he says, or how he explains it, is that your child's brainstem, which he calls the security guard, this is the security guard that keeps you safe. It's the fight or flight or flee portion of the brain. That part of the brain is very instinctual. It's already formed by the time your child is born. Therefore, this is the dominant part of the brain, right? It's all about survival. He also talks about the hippocampus, which is the memory saver. And this is where all memory starts being processed and stored, right? So depending on how we respond to our child's needs or behaviors is how they'll store it. And then the prefrontal cortex, I thought this was the most fascinating, doesn't finish developing until about late 20s. So if you look at that big picture of that big brain, those are 3 areas that we often need to judge what the consequences of our behaviors are going to be, right? Of our actions. And if that part of the brain doesn't finish developing until late 20s, you can imagine how tricky it is for kiddos who are experiencing behaviors as a result of feelings that and navigating their space. This graphic is awesome because the way he describes the brain, he compares it to a building or a home that has yet to be completely built. And he calls us, the adults in our children's lives, the parents and the facilitators, kind of like the scaffold, what holds this building together until it's fully formed, until we can wean ourselves away just as we remove that scaffold from that building that is still being put together. So what your child is really saying when they're experiencing all these kinds of emotions and behaviors is that I need to build the skills to handle myself better when I don't get my way. So I love that. And I often use it. So anyway, the bottom line is that, you know, we have an opportunity to, as the facilitator, as a scaffold, to help structure out and reinforce and firm up these skills and give these skills so that our kiddos can eventually stand on their own and be more independent. Along with where the brain development is and how we know that the more critical part of the critical thinking part of the brain isn't going to be developed until about age like late 20s. There are also psychosocial development stages for children, for people. And Erik Erikson has a ton of these stages all the way from birth to death. I'm going to focus more on autonomy versus shame. And this is the ages between 1.5 and 3. And this is the stage where you're going to hear a lot of no, a lot of I do it myself. And depending on how us, the adults, respond to this stage will either help our children feel autonomous and proud of what they've accomplished or shameful about what they can't accomplish. So what is happening here is that they, at first, when they were born, when they were babies, you would carry them around all over the place. To them, you and them, or you and your child, were one. If your child was thinking milk and you gave them milk, it almost works as one brain, right? This is what they're thinking and they're feeling. About 1.5, children start standing on their own. They start, exploring the world independently, and then a light bulb goes off and they're like, what? I'm separate from my parents? I can touch this and cause something? So they're really playing with the concept of cause and effect, and that they can independently cause that to happen. And it's very powerful. And so what we want to do is foster that wonder, that excitement, that autonomy. And should we respond in a way where our child is saying, hey, I want to do it. I want to do it by myself and I want to do it this way. And we respond by saying, no, you can't. What happens is they receive a message saying, you can't do it right. And it can bring shame. Now, different people say different things about these stages, but I love the idea of autonomy and how we can best support our kiddos to become more autonomous. The next stage is initiative versus guilt. Let me just look for this guy real quick. Okay, so yeah. So this is the stage where you start seeing more reciprocity in play, right? So there are various stages of play. You've got your first stage, which is onlooker play, where children are just kind of looking and checking out the kiddos. Ooh, that friend over there likes to play with trucks, and this friend over here likes to play with babies. I'm really observing my environment and checking out which friend I want to enter play with. And then as they grow and enter ages like 3, 4s, we're starting to see them initiate more reciprocal interactions, right? So they're showing you, hey, mom, look at this, look at this, look at that, dad, watch me, or hey, friend, you want to play with me? And this is where they develop a sense of purpose, right? So depending on how we respond to our children's need to take initiative and create games and carry out those games will either help them feel purpose in their environment or feel guilty for trying but being rejected and having those urges and them not being able to play them out. And I love project-based work because of this. I feel like with project-based work, our teachers are really observing the interest of the children and giving them little bits of little shifts in their environment that they can manipulate and really initiate that change and then explore the cause and effect, right? So you're seeing a lot of autonomy and a lot of initiative taking and encouraging those skills. So keep those stages of development in mind. And I'm just going to go back real quick and keep the brain in mind. One thing Dr. Daniel Siegel says about the brain and these 3 pieces in particular is that when you see your child in that brainstem, they're flooded with feelings, flooded with emotion, and our job as a facilitator is to help integrate the other parts of the brain. So he uses this image of a building that's still being built, and he talks about walking up those stairs and helping your child co-regulate. So they may not be able to regulate, they may be stuck in that brainstem downstairs. And our job is to help them co-regulate and climb up to the prefrontal cortex, right? Because it's a muscle. The brain is a muscle. The more we practice it, the more we exercise it, the more certain behaviors are reinforced. So if us, the facilitator, use our prefrontal cortex almost for them, we're modeling and helping them walk and climb up those stairs. And now we're integrating all parts of the brain. And where the memory saver comes in is how we do it will be what they remember and are able to recall later on when they're experiencing life independent from you. Again, if you have questions, go ahead and type them in, and then I'll answer them at the end. So I was trying to find the best way to introduce or give you strategies to behaviors. And the functions of behavior are used often with behavior mod therapists, behavior modification therapists, and they categorize behaviors into 4 categories. One thing you're going to notice about these 4 categories is that they kind of gel together. There are times where one behavior might have multiple functions, and trying to figure out what the function of the behavior is, remember that staying curious part, will help you more accurately respond to that behavior so that you can give your child more effective skills on how to get their needs met. So if you were on a tour with me or you read the handbook, you know that our mantra is behavior is a person's best attempt at getting a basic need met. But what we want to do is help children, get those needs met in a way that is effective and socially acceptable, right? Okay, sorry about that. So we're just going to break down the functions of the behaviors into 4 functions, and I'll do my best to sneak in all those other parts of development into our strategies. So we've got attention-seeking behaviors, we have escape or avoidance, we've got access to preferred items and activities, and we've got sensory feedback. So let's get started okay, so you've got the 4 functions of behavior, but any kind of need that your child's going to have is just going to be exacerbated by some basic needs that they're going to have. And triggers, antecedents, anything that happens before the behavior will tell us a little bit about what the function of the behavior is. But if your child is hungry, tired, doesn't have a strong routine, lacks some skill, feels overstimulated or understimulated, confused, things aren't clear to them, the behaviors are going to, they're going to struggle a little more. So with that said, I'm not a doctor, but in my experience, I have noticed kiddos that, eat a significant amount of protein, well-balanced meals, less sugar and less processed foods, tend to just be more ready for the day. And you guys know how we feel about water. We love to drink water. The friends take water breaks. They cannot transition from the eating area until they've taken their 5 sips of water. We've made a chart. We've made it visible. It's a very clear expectation to them. When they're tired, kiddos at this age need to have about 10 to 12 hours of sleep. When they're lacking sleep, their brain's just kind of fuzzy. It doesn't work that well. And lack of routine. Everything here at Milestones has a home. And like I mentioned, our little hydration station, it's very clear what our expectations are for our kiddos in that zone. It's visual. We've gone over it. We follow through and we stay consistent. Every teacher has the same plan. Children love routine. It's like a well-oiled machine, and they tend to follow through the routine far smoother when they know what's expected of them, right? Transitions are always hard for kiddos. And by transitions, I don't just mean a new baby, a new home, grandparents visiting, going on vacation. I also mean moving from the kitchen to the bathroom. These things can be really tricky for some kids, and I want you to keep that in mind. It's not often behavior is not that they're trying to make you upset. It's just that they aren't really sure how to communicate confusion or even attention span. I'll talk a little more about that. Or a lack of skill, breaking down tasks into smaller pieces, where their motor skills are within their body within the environment is tricky sometimes. And then being stimulated and understimulated. Often we've got some kiddos who really don't know what to do when there's too much visual stimulation. When we're asking them to put their shoes on and friends are walking by, we've lost them completely because they're so curious about their friends. So keeping in mind the environment and how stimulating it is when you're giving direction is a really good thing to keep in mind, so that you know how to manipulate the stimuli in the environment so that they can really absorb the information you're giving them. Or are your instructions or your the way you're communicating, is it not clear? Is it confusing? And I've got a good example for that later on. So keep those basic things in mind. And let's talk about escape and avoidance first. So let's see. Okay, so I love these pictures because you've got a little guy over here throwing his food, right? um, Often I see kiddos that are just done eating and they don't know how to express, hey, look, I'm done eating, or I really don't like this food, or I wasn't hungry to begin with, but I'm not really sure how to communicate that. And the best way I can do that is to start playing with my food, right? So this example could definitely be a stimuli thing, right? But I put it in this slide because I thought it was really neat. He's in a high chair, and I love the baby signing, right? Baby signing, kids can't express, but they start learning really quickly that this sign means I'm all done. So that's teaching a skill so that you're avoiding a behavior that is not favorable when they're trying to express just a basic need. I love the little girl who's tantruming. Often tantrums can be, one second, admit. Often tantrums can be a way of escaping a behavior. Oh, sorry. Okay, good. Escaping a behavior. Escaping a non-preferred activity, right? I don't want to do it. I'm throwing myself on the floor, and we're spending all this time focusing on the tantrum that they're actually avoiding and escaping a difficult task. And then this little guy at the bottom, he's negotiating. He's like, well, maybe we can do it this way, or maybe I can do it after. Maybe. I have a friend who struggles with packing up his lunch, and he was so cute the other day. We often talk about being experts at things. So as they're developing skills, we tell them that practice makes progress, right? Nobody's good at something the first time, but if we keep practicing and keep working, we'll eventually get better and better and better. So one of those skills is opening your containers and closing your containers. And when a child says, I can't do it, we'll say, well, who can you ask for help? Oh, I know Becky is an expert at opening those yogurts, or Billy is an expert at closing those lids. Let's check in with those friends. Well, this friend, he didn't want to pack up. And he turns to me, and he's learning that certain behaviors aren't going to get him out of a situation, because I'm not going to allow him to do those things to get out of a situation. So I often wait him out. Well, now he's learning that he can use his words to express his need to not, give me one second. He can use his words to express those needs. I'm gonna mute someone right here real quick. He said to me, you know, Milena, I think you're an expert at packing up lunches, which I love because he's using his words, but he's definitely negotiating to get out of something that's really tricky for him. So here are some things that could cause avoidance or escape. And one of those things is maybe the task is too difficult. And I want you to stay curious when you're seeing your children try to escape and avoid a task. It's too difficult. There's too many pieces to it. I'm having a really hard time visually looking at all this bunches of stuff, and I don't know how to organize my thoughts to execute this task. So this is where you can manipulate the environment, right? In this instance, if you got a kiddo who's really struggling to close his containers or put away all his things in his lunchbox, you're going to modify the lunchbox to make it easier for him to feel successful, right? And you're also going to cut the task in half, right? I'm going to do these containers, you do these. And then slowly, as they start mastering these skills, you wean yourself away and you'll see less avoidance. Your directions weren't clear. You know, the other day I said to my son, I have the example right here and I lost it. I said to my son, here's a good example. We had a teacher say, sit down, and a child sat down on the floor, and the teacher said, no, sit down. And the child was sitting, and it was really confusing to that child because they did follow the directions. They sat down. And eventually the teacher was like, oh, well, of course you sat down. Come sit right here. So clarifying your delivery is really something you have to keep in mind. And I often tell this to my teachers, you know, it's not just with the children, it's with people in the world. If you're misunderstood, don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, let me rephrase what I said so I can communicate this clearer so that you're understood. Sometimes the expectations aren't age appropriate, you know. You're asking a child to put on their shoes when they're 1 year old, you know, or you're asking them to tie their laces and you're teaching them how to do that way too early before they can even feed themselves or properly, you know, zip their containers or even button clothes. So just think about what your commands are or what you're requesting of your child, and is it age appropriate? Are they escaping or avoiding a situation because they're overstimulated? You know, I just can't take this anymore. It's too much. It's too loud. There's too many people. Or are they understimulated? You know, I've been here. I done this. I'm over it. Give me something new. I'm gonna figure out a way to get the stimuli I need. And then also think about the stages, the psychosocial stages of development. Um, you know, thinking about autonomy versus shame, you know, that stage, they might just not want to do it because you said that it had to be done. Actually, no, I don't want to do it because I'm a separate person and I'm the boss of my body. Oh, you're going to hear that pretty often. I'm the boss of my body and I can make my own choices about my body. So, yeah, that could be one of the reasons for escaping and avoiding. I love this little comic strip. I found it, I want to say it was the Whole Brain Child or the Yes Brain. But either way, it breaks down how you would respond to a child's behavior in 4 steps. And here you've got mama, and I want you to really pay close attention to her body posture. I think that, you know, we need to take into consideration when we're focusing on integrating the 3 parts of the brain, right? Her body is lowered down to the child's eye level. And what that's helping to do is kind of neutralize the power struggle between parent and child. She's bringing herself down and equalizing. Um, should she have come to the child towering over her, I don't know about you, but to me that might feel threatening and I would stay in my brainstem, right? So when a child is experiencing a behavior and clearly they're noticing the adult is not happy about it, or they're going to be reprimanded or, you know, spoken to about, they're operating in that brainstem, right? Fight, flee, or freeze. And when you come towering at them, you're kind of sinking them deeper into that brainstem. And what we want to do is, remember, walk up those stairs and start exercising that prefrontal cortex so that it becomes stronger. And they start imprinting the skills into their memory saver for them to access at different times. So the less you have your child kind of in that brainstem, the shorter amount of time, the more they're able to walk themselves out of it eventually. So this is kind of like learning to self-regulate. So step 1, you connect and address the feelings behind the behavior. So here the mommy's down at the eye level and she's saying, hey, cleaning up can be hard. I bet you feel overwhelmed. So she connected and she addressed the feelings behind the behavior. You know, your kiddos aren't always, they don't have the language to their feelings about certain situations. They're in them and they're hard, but they can't make sense of them. So here we are modeling and we're talking them through their experience. Hey, cleaning up can be hard. I bet you feel really overwhelmed. Step 2, you're addressing the behavior. When you run away from me, guess what? I can't help you because you're running away. Yeah, I need you to stay with me and I'm here to support you. So please make sure you stay. Running away is not going to work, right? So even though we know children need autonomy and we know they need power in certain situations, it doesn't mean we let them, we don't want to reinforce negative behaviors that will not help them solve their problems in an effective way, right? So we do address the behavior. Number 3, give alternatives. So you can never ever take away a behavior without giving a replacement behavior. It's really difficult. You know, often when we talk about telling children what to do is tell them what they can do, don't tell them what they can't do, because again, it's that direction giving. If you're not clear, they're gonna be like, well, what am I supposed to do? Don't stand on the table. Well, where else can I stand? Your feet stay on the ground, right? So we're using a more positive approach to telling them what they can do versus what they can't do. So give alternatives. Hey, next time If you feel overwhelmed, say, I feel like this is too much for me to do all by myself. Those are the words you could use. You could just say, hey, Mom, I need some help. This is too much. I pulled out all the blocks. This is just a mess and I'm having a hard time cleaning it up. You could just tell me and I'm here to help you, right? So she's giving the alternative. And then step 4, move on. Come on, let's clean up together. What color blocks do you think I can help clean up? So there's a lot of things going on here. So remember when we talked about step 1, the task might be too difficult and over or understimulating. The child is escaping for who knows what reason. You'll know what's going on with your child, the more you practice, the more curious you are. And in this instance, what I'm seeing the mom may be observing or may know about her child is that organizing their thoughts to get this big, huge mess cleaned up is too difficult. So she broke down the task and she also, she broke down the task to help the child make it more digestible. Help the child, make the task more digestible. Okay, so if you know all this about your child, you're really learning that they struggle with processing visual stimuli, with following, multiple step directions. Next time you're going to prepare your child before they begin play. Remind them of the replacement strategy. Hey, Becky, I'm seeing you're going for those blocks. Remember last time it was really hard to clean up all the blocks that you pulled out? Remember, if it gets too difficult when mommy says clean up, do you remember what the plan is? You're going to call me for help, right? So expectations are really important before your child gets into a difficult situation, because then they know, right? Then they have that tool in their little invisible backpack. Okay, so let's say it's attention-seeking behavior. Let's say you have a child that is, following you all around. They really want your attention. One thing I like to tell families is that for attention-seeking behavior, it's going to be a lot of proactive strategies, ahead of time, filling their cup. So, at the end of the day, as adults, our cup is pretty much depleted. And we forget that our kiddos all throughout the day are showing up at milestones and they have to wear a mask, and they had 3 conflicts they had to resolve with their peers, and they had to put on, dry clothes after they took off their wet clothes. It was really hard. Their cups they're pretty exhausted. And the way children's cups get filled is by acknowledging them and hearing them and being present with them. So what I like to tell families is to carve out 20 minutes a day of alone time. I know that sounds like a lot, especially when you're done working, you want to decompress. But really, you'll see the investment is extremely beneficial. I know how hard it is with multiples. I have 3 boys and every day it's a struggle, especially now when they're separating from mom, which that autonomy is going to happen again as they get older. They're gravitating towards dad, and I'm struggling trying to find that time. But one thing that I have noticed is starting bedtime a little earlier and hanging out with them and snuggling with them, especially this young age, because they want to stay awake, right? It's like, this is my body and you want me to go to sleep. Well, guess what? I'm going to stay awake. So starting that bedtime routine early and having a conversation with them and just filling them up, you're going to see what a difference in your relationship and how much more regulated they are. And it's almost like their brain is like really well oiled. And they can move through the day just easier. When you're with your kiddo, put away your phone. Spend time playing, not watching a show or a movie. I often see families say, well, I did have special time. We watched Thomas the Train all day. That's not engaging. That's not reciprocity. I want you to put all the screens away and just sit down, draw a picture, get the glitter out, paint, be in the moment. If it's really tricky to have 20 minutes a day, it's okay. Put it on your calendar. Come up with a plan on how you're going to sneak that time in. Children love looking forward to things. This is why we have a calendar at Milestones. We want that expectation there, and they get excited. They're all excited about Daquan's birthday. Oh my gosh. And then last month, it was Nala's birthday. Nala got presents. The friends made her things at home. One friend cut a flower and brought it to her. They do look forward to these times. So if 20 minutes is just too much, schedule those 20 minutes on the calendar. Even if it's once a week, they love it. Come up with a plan. If you know your kiddo is constantly seeking attention, they're saying, hey, I need you, I need you, I need you, I need you. Come up with a plan, include your kiddo in the plan. Hey, Becky, I've noticed there's times where you really want my attention and you do this. That really doesn't work for me. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It hurts my body, whatever you want to say. What other ways can you get my attention that's going to work a little better? Give them a language if they can't come up with it. Say, hey, Becky, if you need my attention, you need to say, excuse me, mommy, I need a moment. Set clear expectations before they act out. Hey, Becky, today I have a meeting with my boss on the phone. I know you often need me around this time, but here's what I need from you. I need this chunk to be just my meeting time. What can you do if you really, really need my attention but can't have it because I'm in my meeting? You can even put together a basket of waiting toys and praise their effort ASAP. I have a friend who really has a hard time at nap time. And what I tell her every nap time is I connect with her the moment I get into the nap room. Hey, remember, I get to snuggle with you as soon as I'm done reading to all the friends. I can't wait. And remember, you don't have to call me. You don't have to call Milena because I'm always going to come see you, right? I'm making that very clear. You don't have to do this behavior because I'm always going to be here for you. And then the moment I lay down with another friend and I start reading, I turn to her and I give her a thumbs up. And I say this, good waiting. I mouth, good waiting. You're doing it. And then when I'm done reading to that book with that friend, I check in. Hey, I'm really glad you're waiting. The longer you stay on your mat and you don't interrupt, I'm going to get to snuggle with you even longer. Even sooner. And then active planned ignoring. You're not ignoring the child, but you're ignoring the behavior. We have some friends that come to school with very colorful language, and I had, one student say the F word, and this was a few years ago, and they were waiting. They were waiting for my reaction. And often what we use with that colorful language is we just ignore it. We move on. We diffuse the desire to get a reaction from it without responding to it. If a friend is using it in context, like, oh, darn, but used a more intense word, the planned ignoring is we're going to ignore that word, but we're going to address the need. So you're feeling really frustrated. You can say, I'm really frustrated. So I'm not even bringing light to that word. I'm just acknowledging the need to express frustration. Again, I just want to spend a little tiny bit more of time about what it looks like to be a good listener. And often we are engrossed in our day and we're listening to children while we're walking around, while we're eating, doing a task, but really actively and attentively listening to your kiddo, holding eye contact, maintaining good posture, nodding, mirroring the body language, allow the speaker to complete their sentence. And sometimes just saying, oh, yeah, is great. I love this little graphic. Instead of saying, how was your day? You're going to get things like, good. What'd you do today? Nothing. Try using more open-ended questions like, oh, what was the best part of your day? And this little girl right here is saying, oh, I played with Callie and I painted. And then mommy's saying, what was a harder part of your day? And she said, oh, when Diego bited me. And mama said, ouch. Well, what happened after he bit you? Oh, my teacher talked to him and I went to swing with Callie. So you're getting a lot more information when you're asking open-ended questions. And I love that mom moved her past that difficult moment and didn't ruminate. You know, mom made a really good choice about where school is, and she trusted that her daughter's going to get support. And she said, well, what happened after? And clearly, you know, the little girl felt supported. Um, so here we're going to talk about access, how to respond to disappointment when your child can't have access to what they want. So in other words, when they hear the word no, they're going to be disappointed, and disappointed is not a bad thing. I think often, you know, we're afraid of our kiddos feeling disappointed. Um, but it's nothing to be afraid about. You know, I think it's an opportunity and a really important skill so that they can understand that feelings come and feelings go. This first image is of the daddy dismissing and denying. And really, I think it has to do with daddy feeling anxious and wanting his daughter to be happy and be okay. So he says, I'm sorry, honey, that Moby ripped your picture. Don't worry, though. You'll get to paint another one at school. And Moby's a little dog right there hiding. Oh, I love that picture. But an alternative to trying to pull her out of that feeling is saying, hey, I'm sorry Moby ripped your special painting from school, and right now you really feel like you don't want him anymore. And she says, I don't. And you know, often when kiddos say things, it really packs a punch for us, you know, hearing, yeah, I don't want that dog anymore. It may make us feel uncomfortable, like, oh, how dare you say that? You know, he's our family member. And it takes us to a place of like, my child may be turning into, I don't know what. But what they're actually saying is, I'm really disappointed and I don't have the words and I'm angry, right? So then daddy says, I know that's how you feel right now, but remember, how did you feel last night when he snuggled in bed with you? And she says, I loved him. And he says, see, sometimes sometimes you feel love and sometimes you feel anger. Feelings change all the time, don't they? When I was running this presentation by a friend of mine who's also an educator, she equated it to, you know, us having anxiety when needing to present, and not practicing and procrastinating and not preparing keeps us in this space of like anxiety. And can you imagine how this little girl would feel when she isn't unpacking those feelings? She will be constantly in this brainstem area, right? And anytime her dog would walk by, she's probably in terror, like, oh gosh, here it goes again, which will sink her deeper into that brainstem. So what dad here is doing is walking her up those steps to the prefrontal cortex and then engaging that memory saver. Hey, remember, you didn't feel like that last night. Feelings come and feelings go. So all in all, what I'm trying to say is that when a child can't have access to something, you're not taking away their autonomy. You're not taking away their initiative and their need to have purpose, because you're giving them those opportunities to have autonomy and to take initiative in other areas that might be more appropriate. When you take away access to something that the child can't have, again, you're not taking away that autonomy or initiative. You're doing it for a reason, because you have the developed prefrontal cortex. But know that your child is going to feel disappointed, and that's an opportunity to help them learn to regulate. So co-regulating means allowing them to have those feelings, unpacking those feelings with them, and letting them know that they coped and they persevered and made it past those feelings. Again, it's like a muscle. The more we do this with our children, the less time you'll see them ruminating in their downstairs brain, and feeling bad and feeling sorry and feeling anxious. Now, with this said, I want you to validate, but don't ruminate. I don't know what kind of kiddo you have, but I have 3 different types. Not one is the same to the other. And I know with one of my kiddos, when I unpack the feelings and we sit there and we talk about emotions, where are you feeling it? What part of your body? You know, let's breathe it out. You know, for that child, it really helps regulate him. For another child, it just sinks him deeper into that brainstem. So I know that that's not going to work for my child. I'm going to validate. I'm going to say, I bet that was really hard. Let's go do a different activity that will pull you out of that brainstem, and then I'll address the feelings come and feelings go at a time where you're more regulated and more, I can access your upstairs brain more readily. Okay, so sensory feedback, what people don't understand is that there are 7 senses as opposed to the 5 senses. And, kiddos, the central nervous system doesn't finish developing until about age 7. So this is why babies stick things in their mouth. They're really curious, and they use their sensory system to explore the properties of the environment. Some kiddos, though, are easily stimulated and they might avoid. So you might have your seekers and you might have your avoiders. And, one day is different from the other. One day they might be a seeker, the other day they might be an avoider. And here we've got our wonderful modeled mama showing us how she's going to address 2 different situations. So the pink is for a child who's a sensory avoider, and then the white bubble is for a child who's a sensory seeker. And just to prep you or give you background on the pink bubbles, they are at Costco, and the Costco TVs and the audio stuff went on, and it really scared the child. Okay, so she's coming down step 1. She's connecting and addressing the feelings behind the behavior. Hey, the loud TVs must have felt really scary for you at Costco, right? And then step 2, she's addressing the behavior, but running out of the store is really dangerous. I didn't know where you went. It really scared me. I get that it was scary. I totally understand it, but running out is not safe. And then give alternatives. Next time, I need you to cover your ears, and I'll know that you need to move to a quieter place. So if it feels so loud, make sure you cover your ears and then move on. Come on, let's try it again. Let's practice. I love practicing for children who have sensory aversions or sensory seekers. If you have a child who's auditorily like overstimulated, and you want to practice going to Costco, you can get earmuffs. But the idea is, just because they're sensory sensitive, don't let them always avoid. You want to desensitize them and teach them how to pull themselves out give them the tools to pull themselves out of the brainstem and walk up to that prefrontal cortex and understand that it is only noise and I can control it in different ways. Of course, if you have to go to Costco, leave your kiddo who's overstimulated at home if you really have to get groceries done. But I also encourage you to make it almost like a therapy session. Okay, so this other kiddo is a sensory seeker, the white bubble. And so here's mom addressing the fact that they went to the beach and their child put sand in their mouth and is like constantly chewing and seeking that feedback. Step 1, connect and address the feelings behind the behavior. Hey, chewing on the sand must feel really interesting to you. Address the behavior. Eating sand can make you really sick. Give alternatives. Remember, we brought your chewy, and you can chew on this if you want to bite something. Step 4, move on. Come on, let's go find those yummy crunchy crackers you love. Mom knows my child loves crunchy stimuli. This was me. I used to always put things in my mouth when I was a little girl. I was a biter. I needed that sensory stimuli, and I still chew gum like crazy. But I know that about myself, and I know it calms me. So next time, if you understand this about your child, next time prepare your child before you go anywhere. Knowing their sensory needs, whether it's to seek or avoid, give them things they could use to seek or calm them or help them buffer the stimuli that's coming in at them, and remind them of the replacement behavior. And then most importantly, for your kiddos who are seekers, give them a sensory diet. We have kiddos who really want to touch each other. They really want to feel the pushing and the pulling. That's the proprioception. And we know that before circle time, we need to either give them, or before nap time, we give them some deep massages, or we we compress their joints together, it just gives them that feedback and it calms them so that they can be more successful in an environment where it's not appropriate to seek that type of stimuli. Now the tantrum, pum, 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 pum. Tantrums, basically your child is in that brainstem. It's so hard to get them out. You're really trying to get them back up to the prefrontal cortex, and you can't force it. It's just not going to happen. You have to let a child have their feelings and run their course. And for some kiddos, talking sounds like white noise and it's not helping them. It's putting them deeper in that brainstem. You may just want to sit with them and talk them through it. I like this little comic here that says, instead of dismiss and deny, try name it to tame it. So you've got your little girl here and she's saying, oh, I feel hurt in my knee. You know, I fell and hurt my knee. And then you've got mommy saying, oh, don't cry, it's okay, don't be sad, you're fine, just be more careful next time. You know, that's not giving your child the tools to cope when another scary fall happens. To you, it seems like a tiny fall, and I often see this with dads. You know, they often say, oh, get over it, it's fine. You know, don't baby them. You're not babying them, actually. You're walking them through a very scary situation that will then be a tool that they store in their memory saver for other scary situations. It might not be a fall, it might be something else. And like I said before, the more you unpack these feelings and process them with your child, the easier they will learn to self-regulate and process them on their own. So try name it to tame it. I fell and hurt my knee. That can hurt. I saw you running and you tripped and scraped your knee. Then what happened? Then mommy come. That's right. I held you and I rocked you and you felt better. Yes. Want me to show you what happened? Yeah, show me. So I love this because now the child is physically showing mom her process, right? I don't hold children when they fall. I think they're far more capable. I talk them through it. I come down to their eye level. I say, hey, and I narrate. I tell them their story. You were running and we didn't see the toy in front of us. You tripped and fell. That must have felt really scary. But then I move on, right? So be really careful with this rumination part too. Then I say, all right, let's see. Can you stand up on your own? Do you want to hold my hand? Let's check. Are your knees okay? Let's do a body check, right? So I'm supporting them past the feeling. And if they need to cry a little longer, that's fine. They can cry. But the point is that I am giving them support, but just what they need, not overbearing support. Because I want to be their co-regulator, but I don't want them to hyper depend on me, right? I'm trying to be that scaffold that I'm going to pull away. Breathing strategies before, not during a tantrum. You don't teach them during a tantrum. I guess for some kids you do. Like if you had a son like Pablo, my older one, you can teach them anything in the moment and they, for some reason, can keep it in their mind and learn it and move past things. The other two were not like that. I had to teach them deep breathing skills ahead of time. I still have one son who hates being told to take a breath. It doesn't work for him. So you'll know what works for your child. I want to show you this really quick video on empathy books. Oh, they're golden. So I'm going to press play real quick. Let me know.
When I make a book, often what
Can you
I
hear
try
the
to
audio?
do
Show me
first
thumbs
is to
up.
just
Woo!
say what's happening and draw what's happening very clearly. So I see that you woke up this morning and you want cookies for breakfast. And I can write on the book the first thing. It's an observation. Oh, you woke up and you said, cookies are what I'm going to eat for breakfast. And then I name that. And then often, you know, mama says, no, we're not going to have cookies for breakfast. And then I would say the feelings are really important to give even just 2 or 3 words. You're so angry or you're so frustrated, you really want cookies for breakfast. And then this is the real big part of it, is that in naming the feelings and in making the book, I'm providing empathy, right? My child is feeling seen. And it's amazing how when I start to make the book, often the feelings then, you know, my child will still be feeling his feelings, but he'll move to looking at the book and getting engrossed in what we're doing. And then often he'll say, especially as they've gotten older, oh, put this, show the kind of cookies I want, or show that I'm yelling, so sometimes they'll participate in the making of the book. And so from the observation, I talk about the feelings. And then often I'll end the book with, sometimes I'll just end with the feelings because there's nothing more to say. You're disappointed and you can't have cookies for breakfast. And that can be the end. Other times, if it's something where there could be a possible solution, if that makes sense, then I'll add that to the end of the book.
So where she says there could be a possible solution, this is where I'm talking about making plans. It's sometimes, Becky, you really want my attention and it's really tricky and this is what happens, and I can make a little social story. Well, I call it social story too because behaviorists call it social stories. And then, these are called empathy books in the nonviolent parenting realm. But what you can do with these books too is make a plan or set an expectation. When you wake up, you will, pack up your things and put them away. This is something we've done for many kids, is making social stories so that they know what their expectations are, what they feel, and that it's okay to feel it, and then how to cope and overcome that feeling. And then the expectation. So it's visual. Our kiddos are so visual at this age. They're paying attention to your facial posture, your body posture, your huffing, your puffing, your calm. So I love empathy books. Okay, so going there. Active and planned ignoring. Now, sometimes their tantrum is not a downstairs tantrum. Their tantrum, they're actually exercising their prefrontal cortex. They have learned that if they throw themselves on the ground, they will get what they want, whether it's attention, whether it's escape, whether it's sensory seeking, or whether it's, what's the other one? I forgot. But with that said, if that is the purpose or the function of the tantrum, you don't want to acknowledge the tantrum. You're not ignoring the child, you are ignoring the behavior, the inappropriate behavior. So think about some planned ignoring. I have a friend who, is calling me at nap time, Milena, right? At nap time when everyone's trying to sleep. And my planned ignoring, I'm talking about planned ignoring. I know we were talking about tantrum, but this is a really good example. I may say to my friend, I really like how you're staying on your bed. You're staying on your cot, even though there's an undesirable behavior, the screaming. I'm not addressing that one. I'm only addressing the positive one because it's so multi-layered and so many skills that I'm trying to teach at once. Anyway, going back to ignoring the tantrum, I hear you're having a hard time. I'm going to wait for you in the kitchen when you're ready to talk about it. We can make an empathy book about it, right? So I'm not going to give in because I've already set that limit. But you're more than welcome to talk to me about it. I hope that makes sense. It's so tricky. Tantrums are really tricky because you don't know how much of the time they need you and how much of the time they're just toying with that cause and effect. When I do this, this is what I get. Reflective listening, reflecting the feelings that you see back at them. That must have really hurt. You must have felt really scared. Actively listening. Sometimes I don't say anything. Sometimes I just sit there and take a breath and say, yeah, that's it. Just actively being there and present. I love playful parenting. Playful parenting is kind of like helping the child get out of that brain stem area where she said when the child helps her make this book, it kind of gives them a break from that hard feeling. Well, playful parenting, you can do the same. If I have a kiddo who's really struggling getting their clothes on and they're crying and they're upset, I want them to be successful. So trying to get them out of that brainstem, it could be helpful to, grab their t-shirt and try to put it on myself. Then they have a little break from that really intense feeling of like hopelessness, helplessness, and and then they laugh, and it kind of diffuses that feeling, and then you can address and validate and move forward. And to just remember that validation versus rumination, you'll know what kind of kiddo you have. Setting limits. Okay, so number one in setting limits, model the behavior you want to see. If you're having a tantrum, if you're having a fit and you're slamming things all over the place and you're like, I'm frustrated, make yourself an alone space, a little space you can go where you have no visual stimuli, no auditory stimuli. You're just there in your feelings and you're taking a break, and get yourself out of that brainstem area. If you model these behaviors, your child is more likely to um, be more willing to do what you're giving them, to use these tools, if that makes sense. Think about natural versus logical consequences. If you look down here, the little girl with the flower on her shirt and mama is pointing. She's saying, see Juliana's tears. Can you imagine how she might be feeling? So I don't know what happened here, but I'm assuming, let's just say the little girl might have pushed Juliana so that she could get something, something else, or take something away. A natural consequence to her behavior is Juliana crying. Look at her face. When you push her, it really makes her sad. She looks really scared right now. That's a natural consequence to this child's behavior. And we as facilitators need to point these things out, so that they see their behavior as a boomerang. When I do this, it comes right back to me. And this builds an internal motivation to behave more appropriately in their environment. Oh man, I didn't want Juliana to, if I feel bad, like I feel really bad that I made her cry, I'm going to go check in on her and be more aware of how my behaviors affect other people. If you look up top where it says set loving limits, mommy saying to the child, I can see you're really upset. You're having a hard time stopping your body. I'm going to help you. So a natural consequence to a full-blown thrashing tantrum could be that they're bumping their head against the hardwood floor, right? Now you can't stop your body. I'm going to move you to a softer place. So I'm going to stop your body. Or I'm hitting somebody. Oh, you're so upset. I can't let you hit your friends. I'm going to stop your body, right? So that's a logical consequence. It's not a natural one. It's a logical one. So keep the consequences connected to the behavior. You hit your friend, you lost TV time. That doesn't make sense, right? You hit your friend, you're going to have to wait here until I can be with you to make sure you're addressing your problems in a safer way. So now your child has to wait. That's a logical consequence that's more connected to that behavior. I understand you want to go play, but you hit your friend, and I need to make sure everyone's safe. So you need to wait here until I'm ready to go help you. Make sure your praise is focused around that too. Hey, look, we went to Juliana's house. Oh my goodness, you solved your problem so beautifully. You wanted that toy, and instead of pushing her, you said, hey, Juliana, can I have that toy when you're done? That really worked. Wow. Going to Juliana's house was really fun today, right? So your praise is focused on the effort rather than the achievement. And stay confident. Often we get from people that this parenting approach is like so hippy dippy, you let your child run the show. But no, you're teaching your child how to communicate effectively, but you can do it in a confident way. Like the mom in the empathy book, she's like, yeah, sometimes, we just end the book with being disappointed. It's not about being permissive. It's about helping your child. It's the middle ground, right? It's giving them the structure and the limits they need to thrive, but also allowing space for this need for autonomy. Provide the alternative behavior. Say yes to the feelings, but no to the behavior. I know you feel like you hate your brother right now, but let's talk about another way to express it. Give them the tools. Redirect to a more appropriate setting or activity. So again, the sensory seeking. It's just not working here. Let's go outside and climb on the structure. Give controlled choices. I love this one where it says try yes with a condition. I hear you, buddy. You want to read another book. And yes, we can read another story, but tomorrow. We've already read the books for today. So, yes, but with a condition. Um, Oh, I love this, the first this and then that. Again, you can say, hey, it's almost bedtime. Um, I'm getting ready to read a book. Let's go brush our teeth. I don't want to brush my teeth. All right, well, I'm going to wait here. We can't read that book until you've done this. So, yeah, we can read that book, but first you got to brush your teeth. So try to plan your interactions that way. Add a visual. So you'll see around our school, we've got sequencing posters. First you do this, then this, and this. It really breaks down the task for our kiddos. Become a broken record. I don't want to go to bed. I understand. Go to bed. But, but I hear you. It's time for bed. But I need my teddy bear. You have your whale. Go to bed. I'm thirsty. You've already drank water. Go to bed. I need a poop. I need a pee or a poop, whatever. We've already tried the potty. Go to bed, right? So you're becoming this broken record when negotiations are happening. You're not angry. You're just repeating what the plan is. Avoid sounding like white noise. For some children, I'm noticing that when you do this and whatever, all this talking can really work for most kiddos in pulling them out of the brainstem. For some kiddos, it's just white noise. So getting straight to the point, like, no, go to bed. No, might be a better fit for some children. Just you'll know your kiddo. Be consistent. When there's a change in routine, discuss it. I know that mommy says no screen time during the week, but today I have a meeting, so things are going to change a little. Talk about it because it can be confusing. Let's see. Okay, so with all this said, you know, it's a lot of thinking and it's a lot of investigating, and you're trying to be a detective, but you will not be effective if you yourself are constantly in that brainstem um, place. So self-care is so important. Start the week with it, go for a walk, take a breath, do some yoga, take a warm bath, call a friend and sleep. Before this presentation, I did some yoga moves and it really regulated me because I was terrified and now I felt so much better. Take good care of yourself so that you can be the best you can. And these are good reads. You got a lot of Dan Siegel books in here. I really like him. And, I'm going to put this slideshow in the newsletter, and I think I'll even drop the video in it since we have it. And that's what I've got for you. Let me check my questions. Okay, big feelings. How do we manage a child who has big feelings such as anger, or when your child is fake crying to get a reaction out of you? Okay, so again, I think trying to teach the skills before they come up are really important. We use puppets and we also use social stories, but another tool that I really like is telling them stories from when I was a little girl. When I was little, I went to school and I got so angry and I did X, Y, and Z. Oh my goodness, how do you think that made my friend feel, right? And then making them active partners in telling the story. What I often say is, you have that friend who's going through a hard time and they're telling you, hey, I'm going through a hard time. And in your mind, you know what they need to do, but they're so in it, they can't even think of a solution that's a wise solution. Your child is the same way. When they're in the moment, they can't even think about how to process those feelings. But when you take them out of that situation and you tell them a story about someone else going through those moments, it takes the pressure off of them, and it takes the pressure off of them being wrong or doing it wrong, and it helps them be active partners in coming up with a solution so that they can have those tools when you're in the moment. And all you have to do is give them a little prompt because you've already told them the story. So if you have a child who has big feelings such as anger, my question to you is, what does that look like? Because if they're crossing their arms and going, and you're validating, hey, I hear you. it's upsetting, it's really frustrating, and they just turn their back at you and they're angry, I see nothing wrong with that. I feel like that's an expression of their anger. And maybe they just need a moment. Now, if you have a child who is hitting or throwing things on the ground or throwing them in the air, I don't feel safe. We're going to go find a safe spot so that you aren't hurting anybody and whatnot. If they're hitting you, do that planned ignoring where I'm going to keep my body safe. I'm not comfortable being around you when you're hurting me, but when you're ready to talk, I'm ready to listen. And remove yourself. If they follow you, which I've had happen, you can hold them and say, I'm going to hold your hands until you're ready to talk. I know this is hard. And sometimes, okay, so I went to this great workshop on behavior mod. Sometimes you have to be bigger than that feeling because they're so stuck in the brainstem they can't get themselves out. And one example the therapist gave was that a child was trashing the whole classroom. It was really challenging. So the therapist got up on a table and just started singing like some rando thing and made herself bigger than that child's behavior. And it took that pressure off the child. And was able to get them, like snap them out of that brainstem. Another thing is giving them alternative tools for this frustration. We have an alone space here built in the office, and it's a nice dark space. The children have flashlights with little plastic coverings to make shadows, and it's that brain break, you know what I mean? But in there's also a pillow. And at circle time, when they're regulated, we talk about how you can get those angries out because it's not safe to keep the angries in. The anger is going to keep growing and growing and growing, and we want to keep you safe and we want to keep the friends safe. So we got to get these angries out. So we've got a pillow where they could scream their angries out. They could punch their angries out. If you look behind me, I don't know if you could see, you've got hands on the wall. Those hands are where you could push those angries out, right? Because we have to get those angries out. But we got to keep our friends safe. We need to keep our school safe. We need to keep our teachers safe. But we got to get them out. So teach your child it's okay to get them out. It's okay to feel angry. I feel angry all the time. But we also have to keep our family and our friends safe. Fake crying, if you know for sure it's fake crying because they want something, what is it that they want? What's the function of that fake crying? Do they want your attention? Do they want a toy? Do they want X, Y, and Z? If you don't know the function of that behavior, get 2 pieces of paper, fold them in half, staple it, and write an empathy book. I'm noticing so and so, Becky is crying, but I'm not really sure what it is. Can you help me finish this book? Why do you think Becky's crying? What does she need, right? Get more information. Use that as a tool. I often think fake crying could be, I need attention. And again, I would go back to reflecting on how much alone time are you getting with them? Like actual alone time where the TVs are off, you're getting the glitter out, you're getting the glue out, you're playing with little critters. So yeah, that's my answer to you. And then we've got, yes, I'll be sharing the recording with you. In your example of praising the positive behavior of the child staying on their cot and ignoring the undesirable behavior of them yelling, do you practice addressing the undesirable behavior thereafter and providing alternative methods, or do you recommend solely focusing on the positive behavior and ignore the other behaviors completely? You want to address it. You will know your kiddo best, but address it in a moment where they're not going to feel put on the spot. Children already, like when they start the program, there's a conflict and they're running away from me because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble, right? What we want to teach them is that you're going to have confrontations. We're going to ask you to resolve problems, but when you're in the moment, it might not be the right time for your kiddo. Make an empathy book. Yesterday, Billy, you were really frustrated and or let's do the cot. Becky, you did such a great job staying on your cot. And then I draw Becky laying on her cot. it helped all the friends learn what it looks like to stay on your cot. So this is the effort-based praise. These are the very explicit behaviors you want to see your child duplicate to be more successful. You showed all, and you're tying it to how it affects other people. You showed all the friends what it looks like to stay on your bed. But it was a little hard keeping your voice quiet, right? It was waking up the friends. We make mistakes. It happens. What can we do next time so that we can put all the friends to sleep quicker so that Milena can come and snuggle with you sooner? What can we do? Right? And then make them active partners in resolving the conflict. Making a plan for the next time they might experience those feelings and need, when give them the skill for later. Does that make sense? Any other questions? I tried to keep it, you know, in an hour. I went a little over an hour, but I think we did good. You guys are doing great. I'm so proud of each and every one of you. I feel like the emails I'm getting, the questions I'm getting, this is what I live for. I love doing this. Keep the questions coming. I'm here to help. I might not always have the answers, but I will do my best to find them for you, or make suggestions or refer you out to someone else. One thing I do want to say about tantrums I completely forgot is that I want you to keep an eye on the frequency, the intensity, and and how long the tantrum is lasting. If you're seeing that the tantruming is really impeding on your relationship with your child, let's talk a little more. If you're noticing the functions of the behavior is, sensory focused, we may want to talk about like an occupational therapy assessment. If you're feeling like it's around communication, we might want to talk about, speech. But you know keep an eye on that, because if it's 45 minutes or longer that this tantrum is going and you're just not sure how to get them out of that brainstem, and you've tried all these tricks and tips, let me know and we can figure out, a next step. But that's all I have for you. Thanks so much for coming. I'm going to wait like one more minute to see if anyone else has any more questions.
I posted one in the chat.
You did? What
Yeah.
about a child that wants attention and they are given like I get this one all the time. Um, I, you know, I get this one all the time. I'm gonna say get them a puppy. No, don't do that. I think puppies are like the best. Those kiddos where you feel like, gosh, I fill their cup. I fill them all the time. These kiddos typically are having a hard time with delayed gratification, right? Often I see these with firstborns or only children where, it's not your fault. It's not a parent's fault. It is what it is. You're the only child and you've always had access to attention. And sometimes it's really hard to wait because that's just always been your reality. I think making an empathy book or talking about a plan, I'm noticing that sometimes you're really needing me and, whatnot, but we're gonna come up with a plan where you can wait a little longer and help them learn, to keep themselves busy or learn to solve their own problems before they come and get you. Here's one thing we do at Milestones. If a friend needs help, we're starting to implement this because I feel like now the group is bonded and like we all know each other and all our skills. If you need help, ask a friend before you come and ask a teacher, right? Because what we want to do is prepare your kiddos to go into a kindergarten class with like one teacher and 26 kids, right? Things are going to be different now, but hopefully smaller class size. But we want them to be resourceful and figure things out on their own. So as that scaffold, you can offer them tools or you can ask them, hey, what do you think you can do while you wait? And when we go back to natural consequences, your feelings and your needs are also relevant. They're important. And if you're feeling overwhelmed and just not ready to talk, it's okay to say, I love what you have to say. I really want to spend time with you. But remember, we talked about 3 minutes and, daddy has to finish this. But I'll always come back. I always do. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And
Thank you.
yeah, I think delayed gratification is really hard for kids these days. You can find anything they want on YouTube. Things are so easily accessible, and they don't.
I have problems with delayed gratification.
Me too. It's tricky, but they can do it. And, it's great practice here at school. You've got 11 kiddos that also need the teacher. I like to tell the kiddos, I'm not an octopus teacher. I only have 2 arms. Or I only have one brain. I can't hear everybody's words. Let's wait and let's talk to one friend at a time. Or I really want to hear your words. I'm still listening to Becky, but I'm going to ask you what you wanted to say in a minute. Okay. Oh, I also should talk about prompting. You want to start teaching the children like hand motions for things they need. And that's one common thing that comes up. Milena, 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 Milena. And they're like getting louder to see who wins the attention from Milena. So often I will not make eye contact with these friends. I will keep my eye contact very obvious on the friend who's talking, and I'll keep nodding to that friend. And eventually that prompt will prompt them to be like, oh, okay, I'll wait. If that's not enough, then I take it up a notch and I'll be like, and then I keep listening to that friend. So it's that gesture. And then if that doesn't work, I'll say, I really want to hear your words. I'm still talking to this friend. Give me a minute. I want to hear your words too. After I talk to that friend, I'll talk to you, right? So I want to give like a dropper effect of support, because I want them to walk themselves up to that prefrontal cortex and solve that problem on their own. And if they can't, that's okay. That's where they're at. I'll give them a little more support until I wean myself away. Thank you for coming. This was fun. And if you have any more questions, just email me. I'm always here.
Thanks, Milena.
Thank you. I'm going to run back to the kiddos. Bye.